This video does not endorse, promote, or glorify any form of illegal or harmful activity.
Hey guys, young Psychonaut here, back at it again with another video, and today we're back with another tier list. I know I haven't been dropping them too much lately, but I was also focusing a little bit more on like other content because I've been milking the tier list a little bit too much in the past, but it's really good to be back because it is still the cornerstone of this channel, honestly, and I still love doing them. So today we're going to do the Euphoria tier list. And let me be very clear about this one. This is going to be just extremely personal to me because everybody experiences euphoria totally different. Like, I feel like a lot of people get strong euphoria from uppers, which I just simply do not get. For me, the euphoria on uppers, which some people describe, feels like an anxiety or panic attack to me. For me, euphoria comes mostly from like sedatives, like the bodily feel of just floating in a cloud or just like this warm feeling all around you. That is for me what causes euphoria. But again, this is so personal. Like, what you constitute as euphoria is extremely personal and very different from person to person. But I will give you my rationale for each of the substances so you can kind of follow along with how my body reacts to these. And of course, there's also, like, for example, let's say fentanyl, for example. Of course, fentanyl is known to be extremely euphoric, etc. And I have never tried fentanyl myself. So I only have the experience of getting fentanyl in the hospital from medical personnel. And the moment I woke up, the fentanyl was probably already like 70% gone out of my body because I got it for major surgery. So my experience from fentanyl is not euphoric because when I woke up and there was still fentanyl in my system, it just didn't feel very euphoric or very nice. So again, for me, fentanyl was like a C when it comes to euphoria. But I totally understand that if you shoot fentanyl on the street or whatever, obviously it's gonna be very euphoric for you, or like for a lot of people. But again, keep in mind this whole list is just purely based on how I experience these substances. So yeah, with that little disclaimer out of the way, let's get into it. So let me just say that, like I said in the beginning, for me, euphoria comes mostly from like not having anxiety. And that can be like bodily anxiety or it can be mental anxiety. But if one of those is kind of like eliminated, that for me produces a state of euphoria, of just overwhelmingly feeling happy and nice and good. And for me, like, I would say a lot of people experience euphoria from things like dextroamphetamine, for example. I don't think it's very known to be very euphoric, but for me, dextroamphetamine just placed me into a state of like just I wouldn't say total concentration because it was involuntary. I just played a video game for 10 hours straight while on dexamphetamine, but it didn't feel good or euphoric or like I was happy or I was enjoying myself. It felt very forced. It felt very neurotic, like totally not what I would describe as euphoric. So for me, dextro was like, yeah, also like C tier, like not euphoric, for me personally again. And I would say the same with Ritalin. Probably even less euphoric, but yeah, very non-euphoric, not interesting at all when it comes to euphoria for me. And again, this list is not based on like, this doesn't take into account how dangerous the substance is. Because as we're going to see, for example, etizalem for me was almost the most euphoric substance I've ever tried. Again, I would not recommend you do benzos recreationally. I've made many a video about it and why they're so dangerous. But when it comes to euphoria, it was insanely euphoric for me. It basically took away all my bodily anxiety and aches and pain, but it also kind of like just shut down my thought machine or like my head in its totality. It basically gave me a state of being where I had no thoughts. This is also obviously very dangerous because that means that you're also not really thinking about doing dumb shit or, I don't know, doing more substances or combining very harmful substances. But again, the euphoria was absolutely insane for me. So yeah, that is for me definitely one of the most euphoric substances I've ever tried. I must say Xanax, alprazolam is not as euphoric, honestly. Like, I felt like Xanax for me was just more like a sleep agent, whereas Atizolam was really meant for like chilling with friends and having like a really euphoric experience. For me, Atizolam is way more euphoric than alprazolam. I found clonazepam actually a little bit in the middle. I found it a little bit more euphoric than Xanax, but not as euphoric as Atizolam. So I think this stacking is pretty accurate for me. Okay, so let's go to the next one. This is actually going to be very controversial for a lot of people because 3-MMC is basically regarded as one of the most euphoric modern uppers, I would say. At least when I hear it from people around me that do it, etc. And for me, it just didn't really give me the euphoria. Like for me, it felt very dirty, it felt very forced, it felt very like neurotoxic. I don't know how you can feel neurotoxic, but it felt like something was not going right in my brain. And again, stimulation for me doesn't really give me euphoria. A lot of dopamine in my brain doesn't give me actual euphoria. Like I explained in my video about dopamine and dopagenic substances, they do not really signal happiness or content, they signal action and motivation. So for me, that's also very, very prevalent in my experience of those substances because I simply do not get into this state of like total bliss and awe on dopamine drugs. Like, not at all, actually. And this actually makes sense when you look at the science. I mean, I'm not saying people don't get euphoric states on uppers. I'm just saying that it's very easy to confuse a euphoric state with like a very agitated state for some people. And maybe if you've only like tried real uppers, it can be almost a total revelation when you try a really good sedative where you're like, oh my god, this is what it feels like to have rest in your body and to have like a normal heart rate and not adrenaline coursing through your body, etc. I must say, MDMA, again, extremely controversial, my opinion about this. But if you had asked me this when I was 18, I would have put MDMA in S tier. But now that I've actually experienced a lot of substances, I would put MDMA more into maybe A tier, maybe B tier even. The thing is, when you do MDMA a lot, first of all, it loses its magic. So the first MDMA experience I ever had was extremely euphoric. I'm not denying that. The second and the third were also very euphoric. But after a few times, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, the euphoria really starts to dwindle and it just feels like you're taking a bunch of side effects. At least that's what it's like for me. Like, I just have so many annoying side effects from MDMA and it doesn't really feel like this overwhelming love and connection that I used to feel on it. Maybe it's because I've done it too much, but in the last 2 years I've only done MDMA twice and it was pure Molly, so it was not adulterated with anything. And I did a pretty low dose, like not low enough that you don't feel it, but also not high enough that it's neurotoxic, around 100 milligrams. And it was just pretty much a letdown, especially when it came to euphoria. Like, it just used to be so different, but I don't know if it's really the fact that I did it too often or the fact that it's just simply because I've tried better substances now, so my reference frame is different. I would say the last one is probably the more influential, but who knows. Okay, caffeine for me is absolutely the opposite of euphoric. It gives me the jitters, even in low amounts. Even if I drink 1 cup of coffee with caffeine, it gives me anxiety, jitters, not euphoric at all for me. Okay, so alcohol, I haven't drank it in more than 6 years, but I can remember that when I drank it, it was pretty euphoric. Like, of course, there's a lot of side effects with alcohol, but alcohol is just basically a very nice combination of dopamine, serotonin, GABA. Like, it just tickles basically all the receptors that say like, oh, you're feeling pretty good. And like, because it's also a serotonin inducer, it's also a GABA modulator, so it kind of has the same thing with benzos where it kind of shuts down your thoughts and anxiety, which for me manifests in pretty much euphoria. Why didn't I put it in S tier? Because I think because of the physical symptoms you can get from it, it's not fully euphoric. Like, you can have like a little bit of a headache or feel too drowsy. Like, there's a lot of things that can happen on alcohol which kind of take away a little bit of the euphoria for me. Okay, so I would say DXM for me is not extremely euphoric, but if I combine it perfectly with cannabis and take a very low amount, it can get very euphoric, the state I'm in. It's like the perfect, like, it's almost like weed plus for me. And I love weed, like I find weed extremely euphoric, but it is almost like a little bit of a heavier version of weed, but without any of the side effects. At the doses that I do DXM, it basically only gives me a really nice bodily feel and a little bit of a mental headspace, but basically no side effects. So that is already a very euphoric state because there's like nothing really to worry about when it comes to side effects, etc. Like I just said, weed, I love weed. I mean, you know I love weed and my channel is extremely biased towards weed. I admit that. But I mean, my experience with weed have just been so positive, and I'm not saying it is always positive for people, but I'm just saying from my point of view, it is kind of one of the most amazing substances. Anyways, I wouldn't put it in S because weed has this tendency to be more, how would I say this? More circumstantially euphoric. Like when I'm just chilling on the couch, watching a movie, having a snack, weed is S tier euphoric. But when I'm like walking around in the city and I'm baked as fuck and I need to do shit, it's not as euphoric anymore. It's like really when the situation is chill, weed will make it extremely chill and euphoric. But if the situation isn't chill, it's not like the weed is gonna keep being euphoric for me, if that makes sense. Also, if I compare it to Atisalam, I mean Atisalam is just another level of euphoric for me. That is also why I've never ever touched it again in my life after swearing I'd stop, because I know this shit will lure me in so quickly because it's just so euphoric. Okay, I would say ODSMT. Well, actually, you know what? I'm gonna put weed in here because it can actually be extremely euphoric. This is a hard one, actually. I think I'm gonna put it down here. Okay, so ODSMT. I would say ODSMT is pretty euphoric. It has this way more like sedative, opioid quality to it, in my opinion. Is it as good as weed or DXM of alcohol? I don't think so. But it's also a totally different kind of euphoria than the 3-MC and MDMA. I would say I'll put it around here. Yeah. I think that's a good one. And then Tramadol probably also around here. Maybe a little lower, maybe around here. Yeah. Because I feel Tramadol is a little bit less euphoric, but it's not so much less euphoric that it will be dropped down to this category. So, yeah, I mean, because I feel like the sedation of this really gives me the euphoria. And also, opioids are not very, very anxiolytic, but a little bit. And that also kind of creates a state of euphoria for me. Okay, poppers. As you may know, I hate them. They cause basically the opposite of euphoria, extreme annoyance and stress. So, they go down here for me. Okay, so we didn't really touch much of the psychedelics yet, which is because they're also extremely circumstantial when it comes to euphoria. But I must say, let's say we're just going to go off potential euphoria. I would say shrooms go to S tier. I have had shroom trips where I was just so overwhelmed with this feeling of like wholeness, oneness, of like feeling extremely comfortable in your body, just feeling super happy about the universe and everything, and just very euphoric, literally. Basically the definition of euphoria. Of course, I've also had shroom trips that weren't as euphoric, but I must say just the fact that it can induce those states is for me already a reason to place an S tier. Is it as reliable as Atisalam? No. Absolutely not. But I mean, it is very much an effect that I feel a lot on shrooms, I would say. Same with acid, but I'm gonna be very coy here. Acid for me does not have the same, how would I say it, the same chillness as shrooms. That's not a good adjective, but like it doesn't have the same kind of quality of rest. I feel like shrooms are very like chill. They don't stimulate you much. They're almost sedative in a way. And acid for me is kind of stimulating. Like I can't sleep on acid. Like I have to like take it 12 hours before I go to sleep. Otherwise I just won't be able to go to bed. It just because of the dopamine stimulation of LSD, I feel like it pushes me a little bit more towards a little bit more anxiety, a little bit more physical discomfort. So for me, acid, It's just not as potent as creating euphoria as shrooms, but it can be very euphoric. So it will still be placed up here. Okay, I would say let's just continue with the psychedelics. I would say 4-HMET also has the capacity for me to be very euphoric, but again, same as with acid, it does have a little bit more of a stimulating effect, a little bit more of a, yeah, how would I say this? Like a little bit of a speedy effect, whereas shrooms are just very sedative, very chill. So that's why I would put them in A tier. But again, also can reach pretty euphoric states in my opinion. Okay, 2CB is going to be also here, I would say, like it can be extremely euphoric, but I feel like 2CB in my body tends to become kind of a little bit straining on the body pretty quickly. Like I feel like 2CB can push you to a little bit of bodily discomfort sometimes, but maybe that's just me. Okay, 2CC is gonna be down here. Fucking hated it. Hated the body load. Hated how I felt. It was basically just a pill with side effects. Bunch of headaches. Just feeling discomfort, sweating. Not really a fun experience at all. Not really a psychedelic that I would recommend in any way. Okay, so 2-FDCK. This is going to be interesting, but I think it's going to be S tier for me personally because of the physical euphoria you can reach with it. I feel like 2-FDCK, because you can take it orally, it feels so much more euphoric if you take it orally, like bodily wise. I feel like I'm just floating on a cloud. It's like a very subtle but very clear, like bodily sedation and euphoria. I feel like, for example, with ketamine, it can be too forced. It can feel like from one moment you're just totally fine, next moment you're just slumping around, you're not really able to move properly. But with 2-FDCK, it's just very gradual, very chill. It takes like 3 to 5 hours. It just comes up in like 10 to 20 minutes. It's the whole experience of it just doesn't have any annoying rough edges in how I do it. But that also means that the euphoria on it is pretty great. It has a little bit of an anxiolytic quality to it, so that also really helps with like, yeah, anxiety, euphoria, etc. So I would say 2-FDCK, yeah, I can get really euphoric with this one. Ketamine, on the other hand, also pretty euphoric, but it does have this potential to be a little bit unpredictable, and because you have to snort it, that also makes it a little bit more cerebral sometimes. And personally for me, like I said, the euphoria is more in the feeling of having a really nice bodily feeling. I mean, that's also the reason why I smoke indica mostly, because they mostly target your body when it comes to effects, whereas sativa is mostly a mental thing. I mean, it also activates your body a little bit, but I like about indicas that it doesn't give me this crazy headspace. Okay, let's go to the last ones. These are some very interesting ones. So, okay, DCK, I would say, okay, so on the one hand, it is way more sedating than ketamine and 2-FDCK. So you would say it is more euphoric, but I find the kind of sedation that DCK gives almost annoying. Like, it's not really a sedation where you just float on a cloud. It's more of a sedation where you're so inebriated that you just don't know what's going on, or like how to talk, or what to do anything basically. That is not really euphoric for me, but yeah, I could understand how people find this euphoric. But for me, it's gonna be a little bit more down here, I would say. Maybe even here. Okay, tobacco, nicotine. So the first time I ever did nicotine, I was 16, I think. And somebody gave me like a 10 milligram Zyn, or like a nicotine pouch to put on your gums. And that was my first ever experience with nicotine, and it was so euphoric. It was like I was just being blasted with euphoria for like 2 or 3 hours. But then I smoked cigarettes for like 1.5 years, like 15 cigarettes a day or something. And I gotta say, after literally a few cigarettes, the euphoria starts to drop pretty quickly. Like, I'm not saying nicotine can't cause euphoria, because I've smoked cigarettes where I was like, holy shit, I'm feeling so good right now. But I've also smoked thousands of cigarettes where I was like, yo, this shit sucks ass so much. I'm feeling so sick right now, and like, this is just not fun at all. So that is the weird thing about nicotine. It can be extremely euphoric, but there's so many instances where it's just not at all. The thing is, I never really vaped, like vape juice with nicotine in it, so I don't really know what that experience is like. But when I look at my, for example, classmates or friends or whoever that do use nicotine vapes, man, they basically seem to be like, the fun thing is they say it's very euphoric, but also at the same time they're often not really people that seem very happy or very content. So I think it's more of a like the dopamine is tricking your brain into thinking that you're feeling good, but in reality, it's not really actually making you feel that good. But again, I have had very euphoric experience on nicotine, but also very non-euphoric experience on nicotine. So I'm just gonna put it up here, just because the potential is pretty high, I would say. Okay, so Benadryl, yeah, I don't know. Just no. I've never taken a high dose of Benadryl that they actually tripped, but I wouldn't see how that would feel good. Like, even a low dose Benadryl is kind of a little bit sedating, but also not in a way that you're like really, it's not really euphoric or anything. There's probably gonna be a Benny head in the comments being like, no, I take 200 milligrams of Benadryl every day and I feel amazing. Like, yeah, okay, sure. But let's say for the regular psychonauts in here, yeah, let's not. Maybe not. Okay, so codeine. This is actually very interesting because for me personally, I think codeine was one of the most euphoric substances that I've ever tried. The thing with codeine is, for me, I haven't done it in so long, but what I really strongly remember is it gave me this really nice kind of haze of content, of just feeling very warm and floaty in your body, not having a lot of anxiety, but it wouldn't really dumb me down like Benzos. Like, Benzos would just make me a dumbass, stupid zombie. Codeine kind of had this, that you're still kind of functional, you're still kind of having fun. And personally, like, music was just insanely beautiful on codeine for me. So that also gave me this extremely bright euphoria when I was listening to music and drinking codeine, smoking weed. Like, that was extremely euphoric for me. Would I recommend it? Like, no, it's still an opioid. You shouldn't do it too much because you can get physically addicted pretty quickly. But I mean, yeah, it is very much like, for me, I think one of the most consistently euphoric substances. But I mean, yeah, I haven't really tried any strong opioids. Like, I haven't tried any like perks or whatever. So yeah, probably those will be even more euphoric for me. I feel like the opioids do have a more euphoric place in my life, but I haven't really experimented with them too much because of availability and because I kind of, yeah, I don't want to get sucked into that hole, honestly. Okay, nitrous oxide. I haven't done it in so long, but I remember it being pretty euphoric, actually. Maybe not as euphoric as these S tier ones, but it was euphoric enough for me to be like, wow, this is just a state of really like feeling really chill and good. But it was also so short lasting, and at a certain point they banned like the gas pellets. I don't know what's called, the whipped cream pellets in the Netherlands. So you couldn't like buy whipped cream pellets and just use that as nitrous oxide. So the only way to get nitrous now in the Netherlands really is to buy a tank from the street. And why would you buy a liter of nitrous oxide if you're just gonna do it once? So that is a reason for me to not have done it anymore. But it's also just like, yeah, it can be pretty harmful if you do it too much, nitrous oxide. So maybe also a good reason to like leave it at the side for now. But yeah, guys, so this was the video. This was my Euphoria tier list. There's going to be a lot of things on here like fentanyl and MDMA and 3-MMC, dexamphetamine, who I think a lot of you guys would say, oh, no, that's very euphoric for me. Yeah, maybe you guys like upper states or stimulating states, and that gives you a really good feeling. For me, it doesn't. I mean, it's very clear from my channel that I like sedatives and psychedelics, and yeah, you can see in this list ranking also that it's very obvious that those give me the most euphoria. So yeah. Okay guys, so this was the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.